Y we are officially starting the first podcast. So, tirar las invitaciones, estamos en vivo. El primer episodio, the messy definition of Puerto Ricanness. Bienvenidos a Mofongo Diaries, puñeta.
Welcome, welcome, welcome. Estamos muy alegres para estar aquí hoy. ¿Cómo están? We will be unpacking the messiness. We'll be unpacking the messiness of what it is to be Puerto Rican.
Definitivamente. Mira, yo aquí como un pendejo sin subir al live de TikTok. Ahora estoy en las dos canales. Sí. Ay, qué lindo. Qué lindo. Perdónenos, gente. Ahora sí estamos en vivo, damas y caballeros. Estaba co-hosting a mitad.
You know what? It's never a dull day. It's never a dull day with us, and it's always going to be exciting.
Jamás, jamás. You know. Tú sabes. Como Joaquín diría, pero sin el acento para que no nos flaguen en TikTok por racismo. Coño. Tú sabes. Pero sí. Y nada. We're going to start today with, again, the messy definition of Puerto Ricanness. O sea, because this is a real complicated subject, because tú le puedes preguntar a cualquier puertorriqueño, a cualquier boricua, y cada uno va a tener una completa definición diferente de lo que es ser puertorriqueño. It's a mess. It's like if Ray Charles and Stevie Wonders had an interior decorating license. You know? The colors that you're going to see have never seen the light of day.
You know what? Good thing I swallowed, because I would have spit everything out. Ay.
Así es. So, elabora. Vamos a empezar con tu definición, Mini.
All right. You know, I don't consider myself a New Rican, right? So I always try to shy away from that definition. I always feel que son los más que a veces they acclimate more to New York culture than Puerto Rican culture, right? Whereas I'm very Puerto Rican above anything else. My Puerto
Yeah.
Rican identity for me is la comida, la música, mi familia, las tradiciones, los dichos, right? Like just the very essence of Puerto Ricanness, right? Like we're waking up on Saturday morning to la Indian freestyle, bumping porque después de las 8 no son horas de dormir y se tiene que limpiar la casa, es cocinando la cena antes de las 3 de la tarde para que todo el mundo coma, para que no estén picoteando. Tu abuela, diciéndote todo el tiempo, dime con quién anda, te digo quién eres. Es eso. Es un terror de tus elders.
Siempre.
Siempre, hasta hoy, el terror que le tengo a mi mamá y mi abuela.
No, no, mi abuelo puede estar 6 pies bajo la tierra y todavía es como que, ay, que mi abuelo no me escucha hablando así, tú sabes. Es como que, o sea, a veces uno siente que si uno está mal puesto, ellos pueden venir from the grave, like a really bad thriller, tú sabes, con las líricas en el inglés matado, tú sabes, que hablaban nuestros abuelos. They call it thriller.
No,
Thriller nights.
es verdad,
I
es
don't
una
speak
cosa.
very well, but I will sing it anyway. Tú sabes.
¿Cuál era la línea famosa de Celia Cruz y que my English is not very good looking? That's literally that's our elders.
El English de nuestros elders no es very good looking, no es very good sounding, necesitaba cirugía plástica.
Lo que
Tú
me
sabes.
mata a mí es el acento todavía, porque mi abuela, estando en los Estados Unidos como por 60 y pico años, todavía no te dice fuck you, te dice fuck you. El fo con el Q.
Sí, sí. FUK. Q,
Yes.
tú sabes. Y sí, y, y ese es el problema. Nosotros tras que tenemos diferentes definiciones, what really makes it messy at the end of the day es el hecho de que también tenemos la mala costumbre de que nuestra definición vale más que, que la definición de otra persona. Entonces,
Exacto.
sí, y entonces es como que ahí es donde llega estas estupideces en las cuales, pues mi definición es estos parámetros, o por lo tanto, si tú no cumples con estos parámetros de mi definición, tú eres menos puertorriqueño que yo, o tú eres menos boricua, o empiezan hasta las distinciones de que no, yo no soy, yo soy boricua, tú eres puertorriqueño. Y para mí
Es
esto es un significado
esa,
diferente y eso es ridículo.
y es el tema ahora que se está escuchando ahora mucho, ¿verdad? Que si tú no naciste en la isla, tú no eres boricua. Si tú no tienes esta crianza, tú no eres boricua, tú no eres puertorriqueño. I'm like, pero yo me crié con el dicho que somos boricuas hasta en la luna, ¿verdad?
Exacto,
So, ¿por qué carajo
exacto.
ahora estamos haciendo esta separación?
Porque para mucha gente eso era como los choppers viejos de Toys R Us en the Radio Shack. Que te decía, like, you know, this Lego set for only 1999 y el asterisco, because there was fine print at the bottom. So es como que yo soy boricua hasta la luna, asterisco. Y después entonces tiene otra página, tú sabes, que está en font número 1.5 Times New Roman, que necesitas 3 microscopios uno detrás del otro para poder leer el fine print de lo que significaba ser boricua hasta la luna para cada puertorriqueño individual, porque viene con
Exacto.
unos tecnicismos, tú sabes.
Exacto.
Iván, ¿qué es la que hay?
Ivan is our first guest today on the podcast. How are you?
Sí,
How are you, Ivan?
The first podcast.
how,
Yes, it is.
yeah, this is the first episode of our
Yes,
first podcast,
yes.
and you're our first guest,
Yay!
you know, tú sabes. Like my grandpa would say in the little English that he know, feres com es feres served, carajo.
We're unpacking the Puerto Rican identity and
I
what it
didn't
means to
realize I
you,
was
Ivan.
distinct.
You have a unique take on it too, so you're welcome.
Um,
Yeah, don't worry about that. You know, it's gonna have an ad. It's gonna have sponsors later. Basically, I did an identity change. It's gonna be like a comedy channel instead of Apple Silicon Vet. I decided to change the name.
Yes.
TikTok is probably gonna limit me at these
yeah.
identity changes, but I swear it's the last one. I promise. You know,
This is. Yeah, I hear you.
man, you can still call me TikTok Taino. It doesn't really matter. Yeah. I mean, and at the end of the day, none of these visuals, that little logo is going to be in the podcast. Like
Yes,
this
maybe you
is
can
like
call
an
me
audio
Mimi. It's
only,
cool.
so it doesn't really matter.
Equal identity for $2.99. Yeah, I kind of get what you're almost implying. You're almost insinuating that, like when what Mimi was saying about the separation, it almost sounds like it's a grift. Sounds like like when certain Boricuas, especially certain they almost feel like it's almost a sacrilege for the diaspora to identify with they almost view it as a lens of legality. Like in other words, it's illegal for you to identify as this because you didn't come from the island. They almost do it as a form of I'm just gonna call it what it really is. And nobody in the community ever says this shit out loud. It's a form of fascism when you try to regulate your own people from your own bloodlines that you can never you might as well be like Kendrick Lamar saying, but you can never because it almost sounds very sassy when certain Boricuas do it. Almost like they'll tell you you're not really one of us, sweetie, while smiling your face about it. They ain't like us. They ain't like us. Like the Kendrick Lamar thing. Like, and it looks tacky. I've called this out for years, but the problem is you try to tell certain people this, they almost feel entitled to believe it because oh well look at it this way. Like they'll never give you a straight answer about why it's wrong or right or whatever. They'll just be like, they'll almost be treated as, well, that's just the way it is. Like, and it's disrespectful because that you're not really preserving your identity when you do that. You're just gatekeeping white.
I mean, I get what you're saying. The only thing is not even disagreeing with you, but I would just say that I'm trying to dial back on the use of the word fascism. It is a level of discrimination. It is a level of bias. There's no doubt about it. You know what I mean? And I do agree with everything that you say. The thing is that I feel that we are throwing fascism in to describe a lot of things a little bit too loosely nowadays. And this is heavy discrimination within our people. I won't deny that. It is extreme bias, you know. And you and I in the past have had this conversation before, in which, I I said it, and it's part of what, you know, I still kind of believe, technically speaking, because it's like, because Boricua, you know, coming back to like the basic definitions and the essential definitions, the word Boricua comes from Borinquen. Now, a lot of people have very different definitions, even within the island, of what it means to be Boricua. But as I was raised from the beginning and how they raise you in the island, Boricua is somebody born on the island. You know what I mean? Puerto Rican is somebody that is of our nationality or ethnicity, regardless of where they were born. You know, does that make you any lesser? No. The thing is that there is a group of people on the island that it's like, okay, if you tell me that you're Boricua, fine, you're Boricua. Under definition, in my own mind, I might not agree with that, but I'm not going to take away the right for you to call yourself a Boricua. Because for a person like me, like, you come and say that you're Boricua, fine. Because for me, at the end of the day, is semantics. We share a heritage, we share a nationality, and you are no lesser than me, Ivan, just because I was born on the island and you technically, were not, or anything else. That doesn't mean that you're less than me. You know, we're all sharing a struggle here, you know, as Latinos, as Puerto Ricans. We share the same history. We share the same discriminations. We share the same biases that have been put against us and our ancestors. And I have no right to take away from you the fact that you have such a deep connection to the island, even if you weren't born and raised there your entire life, that I have personally no need to take away that definition from you. I and that's the core of where I think we all need to agree, because there's even Boricuas on the island that are going to disagree with my definition of Boricua, and that is fine, you know. But it shouldn't be. I don't feel it should be policed against amongst our people, you know. Like, for example, if there's a white tea lady, blonde, that looks at her family tree, and all her family tree for 5 generations is Dutch, you know, I'm not gonna have her like spray an orange tan and say I'm Boricua all of a sudden overnight. You know, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about within our own people, people that share our heritage. You are Puerto Rican Boricua. Mimi is Puerto Rican Boricua, however she wishes to identify, and we should respect that within our own people that we share this heritage. You know what I mean?
Which I kind of get where you were going with this. You got too many Boricuas or Puerto Ricans that almost feel like it's a burden to acknowledge people. It's like they have no concept of the idea that you can. They don't believe. It's almost like a lot of these people who talk this way. They don't have a true concept of what is to be an ethnicity. They view everything through some pseudo nationalistic terms, which like it'd be the most random people doing almost some weird gatekeeping where only in their minds do they think that they're doing something noble. Like I I guess I see your point about using the term fascism loosely because I get what you mean. I guess what I feel like what I was trying to say with that is I'm using fascism closer to this traditional sense where they don't just people just don't just feel entitled to tell you some yappity yap, but they almost feel like it's a form of righteousness. Like in other words, I'm telling you this because it's morally wrong, morally right to tell you you may come from us, but you can never really be us because, well, what can you like they have to rationalize it. Like and it's like you're trying to rationalize somebody about how they can never belong to you, even though they descend from basically the same common bloodlines and ancestries, but yet somehow there's a stipulation involved almost like it's something written in stone. Like they don't like. I even had someone tell me that there's no such thing as being spiritually Boricua. They view it purely in the terms of how the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico defines what be. You're not Puerto Rican according to the Commonwealth because you don't live within it. What be. You're not Puerto Rican according to the Commonwealth because you don't live within it.
Mira, papi, hay un cojón de viejitas que se acuerdan y dependían, sus vidas dependían, su vida social dependía de Walter Mercado y estarían en desacuerdo contigo de there's no such thing as a spiritual Puerto Rican. Y no contigo, sino con las personas que lo dicen, tú sabes. Porque ese cubano, tú sabes, se ganó el título de puertorriqueño o boricua espiritual. Tú sabes, cada vez que gritaba Tauro, Piscis, Escorpio. Ese hombre se lo ganó en audio, en televisión, en los periódicos, en el Vocero, el Nuevo Día. Él hasta sabía como que los ascendientes y los descendientes y los elementos de cada boricua puertorriqueño espiritual. O sea, él hasta te los dividía si era, if you were a spiritual Puerto Rican of water, if you were a spiritual Puerto Rican of air, of earth, if you were the last Boricua airbender, he had a horoscope for you. You know?
Not you just giving the Captain Planet version.
Sí, o sea, él tenía suficientes anillos para ser Capitán América si le daba Capitán Caribe, ¿ok?
Él se puede comparar ahí el Thanos anciano, without the finger snap.
Sí, tú sabes. Y todo el mundo sabe que si él hubiera sido Capitán Caribe, su anillo favorito hubiera sido corazón. Tú sabes.
Ay. So Ivan, still, with everything that you're learning, right? And everything you've been hearing and everything that's been going on, right? Especially now with TikTok, right? Where everyone now has the best definition of what it is of being a Boricua. What does that identity mean to you, right? Do you pick and choose from what you hear about other people? Or do you have it just, what's in your heart?
Some sort of, pobre pendejo, which I morbidly disagree with. Clearly, like, being Boricua, especially me having a specifically a Boricua, Puerto Rican father in particular, I just feel that, look, there definitely I fundamentally agree that we are past the point of no return when it comes to, because I feel like a lot of Puerto Ricans, especially Puerto Ricans that think more nationalistically, they view it more. I feel in general, I feel like they view it more as a thing of authenticity, which I get it. Obviously, there's going to be a fundamental difference between somebody born on the island and somebody born within the diaspora whether it be a historical community or descend from a parent that was born directly, or even grandparents that were born directly on the island. And then you have situations where there are historical connections where it might not even be your grandparents, but their ancestors that came from the island. And there's some ironic, loose continuity with those connections, which I think a lot of Puerto Ricans now, modern Puerto Ricans nowadays, don't seem to fully grasp, or they think it's like some blasphemy when they do it. Oh, like you're pretending to be something. Like when does something become when do you stop from being a descendant to just now pretending? Like where does the line end? And I don't think the average Puerto Rican really fully gets or understands that. They just act on personal individual prejudice. And honestly, I feel the prejudice is been conditioned by who the benefactor is, and that's the US, the United States government. They may not see it that way because, oh well, that's just the way it is. That like you can't have certain conversations with certain older generation because they people act like just because they yap something out loud, therefore it's written in stone. Group. Like I consider myself part of the diaspora. There's a history associated with being with the label being Puerto Rican. And I feel like a lot of Puerto Ricans want to rewrite history and only view Puerto Rican identity post 1898. You almost never hear people talk about being Puerto Rican before 1898. They think anything before the US, like what's the point? Because they I think that's bullshit. I've advocated for many years in private with certain people that should there ever be a decision to make Puerto Rico a state or independence, there should be a constitutional amendment specifically for the U.S. based diaspora to define Puerto Rican identity according to the diaspora within the context of those living in the United States or in the territories. Because there's a lot of Puerto Ricans that live in the territories too, like the Virgin Islands. There should be a definition of what it means to be a descendant of Boricuas, and that should be an extension and a correlation to the proper identity on the island. It shouldn't be a delineation because when certain Boricuas talk, like you were saying earlier with the viejitos and stuff, what is really the difference between viejitos being almost alegría to tell you you can never be us than an FBA telling other black people stay in your corner because you ain't one of us, like that, those FBA 88 DOS movies. I don't want to bring them into the mix, but what's really the real difference between what we see on social media with that stuff versus the Puerto Ricans acting self-righteous about who can belong and who can't? What is the real difference?
I mean, I'm not very big on speaking on other communities. My main thing is highlighting, right, our Puerto Rican culture, connecting it, and whatever other communities want to do as far as them delineating or delegating or who can come in or come out, that's not my place to speak on, right? My main thing is if we're talking about Puerto Ricans, I just want to keep it about Puerto Ricans and our diaspora, where we're trying to make that connection, and
In other words, it's too self-righteous for certain people in our community to be that militant about not allowing those that want to reconnect. Because it seems like for some people, there's no such thing as reconnecting. You either are or you're not. They want to make it into some weird survival of the fittest bullshit, like some selective breeding stuff. Excuse my French. I'm sorry I had to cuss. Y'all could edit it out. Y'all could edit out the curse word later, but
I don't look at it like that. I feel like, honestly speaking, right, even with people that I've spoken with on the island, people that I've grown up with who are very much immersed in our culture, know the ins and outs because that is their whole identity. If you're coming and you want to reconnect with the culture and you're being genuine about it, I haven't seen any pushback. I haven't had any issues. even when I'm uninformed or misinformed about certain things, because I'm coming humbly and genuinely, people are opening their doors. It's when we come with like, hey, I want to connect with the culture. Hey, I want to learn my history. Hey, how can I do this? But then we come with this air of entitlement, or como si nosotros se la sabemos toda, right? I can't go to someone asking for someone to teach me, and I'm trying to tell the person how to teach me when I don't know. Understand? And that's, I think that's where we're getting that disconnect a lot when it comes within the diaspora. It's, we all carry our own definition of Puerto Ricanness. And when we want to reconnect, we have either that chip or like el guille ese. And we can't do that because at the end of the day, we're all fam, you know? Puerto Rican on the island, Puerto Rican in Cali, Puerto Rican in Japan. We're all one culture and we all just have to embrace each other.
Connection to history. It is connection to, it's a cultural thing. It's also a linguistics thing because obviously the primary language of the average Puerto Rican is Spanish, although English is basically a new buffer between the different sections of Boricuas because of the colonial relationship with the United States. It's the I mean, it's the equalizer for certain people that don't speak Spanish. But I mean, I mean, it's also a sense of history, belonging, and even a legacy that predates even the U.S. Involvement of anything. Like I feel like that stuff like that needs to be touched on more. And a lot of older people are passing away that this knowledge used to be more readily available. Now you got people now you got outsiders trying to tell us about our own history because they're being it's a little too soon for anybody to be trying to rewrite stuff before the last old guard is gone. And some of those people are still alive, but barely hanging on. So it's like people need to understand that, you know, what does it mean to be Puerto Rican? It just means, what does it mean to be Puerto Rican in 2026? Like what are the what are the what are the what are the ish what are the issues? What are the standards? What are the needs and desires of people who come from a specific background in this day and age versus what our elders and our ancestors went through when they were in a similar position? Like what does being Puerto Rican in the 21st century mean? Is it a thing of the past? Is it a relic? Is it something that needs to be evolved, or is it just you know what's the word I'm looking for? Is it a living experience, or is it just I don't know. I'm curious. I mean, it definitely means for me. It means all the above. I mean, when I wake up, I don't question do I belong and do I guess you guys probably understand where I'm going with this. I mean, I'm not, I guess you guys probably understand.
No, I definitely understand where you're going with this, but here's part of where it gets messy. Are you lesser than another Puerto Rican because your parents didn't teach you XYZ part of the culture? I mean, and you have to bear the sins of the father? You know what I mean? It's not that,
He has to bear the scarlet
yeah,
letter.
it's not that clear cut because you can't take somebody that's lesser because their parents didn't used to teach them or didn't teach them something about their culture or something about their language. The language for me really doesn't have that much to do at the end of the day. Why? Because language is something that constantly evolves. And if we survive as Puerto Ricans in 200 years, yo te apuesto lo que sea, because that's how it's worked for the entirety of humanity, that see, if we take a time machine and go 200 years forward, we're not going to be able to communicate with those Puerto Ricans in the future because the language evolved. It's in fact, I'm 41 years old, and when I was 15, to describe cool, Se decía en la isla melaza.
¿Qué?
Y yo hasta el día de hoy, yo ridiculizo a mi hermana de 30 y pico de años porque todavía usa la palabra melaza. Y yo, cállate, jodia charra, ya nadie usa melaza desde 1997, 98, ¿ok? Cállate que estás enseñando tu edad. Y sí, en, en Puerto Rico se usaba la palabra melaza en los 90 para decir, oh, esto está cool, o sea, this is cool, this is great, esto está melaza, tú sabes. It became so iconic that there came a reggaeton artist that was named Kid Melaza. So basically it's like Kid Cool. And you know, there's an internal conspiracy theory of mine that they pew-pewed him and unalived them because it's like we're not using that word anymore and we need to erase it from our history. Okay, nadie usa melaza. Tú lo tienes como nombre de artista. Ay, qué mala suerte tuya. Tú sabes. For the record, that is not accurate. Parenthesis. That's not how historically it really happened or the reason. But yeah, I went there.
On YouTube, a lot of those old, you know, essential era reggaeton tracks where I don't know what song this was. You probably remember. What's the song called where they're like, Oye mi melaza, mi música negra, oye mi mel-" That's really the reference I got from that terminology. I'm like, is this a reference to somebody's blackness? Is that why they're trying to use it less and less?
Yeah, no, it was actually, no, this is so cool. Like, you know, or mi nena melaza, my cool girl. You know what I mean?
Okay. Like I said, I'm only 37 years old, so
Está bien, yo, si alguien tiene que throw me under the bus and show that I'm old and that I'm 41, and, you know, it's for educational purposes, you know what I mean? We're here to enlighten
Exactly.
people. Fine, you know.
like it's
yeah,
like it's
the
okay.
41-year-old
Okay,
tire.
I'm listening. I'm here to learn.
No, it's fine.
No, it's an open discussion, Ivan. This is not we're not here, right? Because like I said, I personally don't identify as New Rican, right? I've always just been Puerto Rican from the Bronx. There's no, I personally don't feel, and maybe my opinion is not the popular opinion. I personally don't feel that there is no right or wrong way to be a Puerto Rican. No, let me take that back. There is a wrong way to be a Puerto Rican. We've experienced it on this app,
Oh, sí,
right? When
sí.
yeah, when we talk about, we see certain individuals in our culture that may highlight one aspect of their ancestry while denouncing another part. We see some people in our culture fetishizing one part of our ancestry. It's there. I don't believe there is a guide, right? I can't tell you how to be Puerto Rican. I can show you things. I can, you know, show you some of mi crianza, las cosas que mi familia me enseñó, la historia de Puerto Rico, de criarme allá en Nueva York o lo que sea, tú sabes, con que todo el mundo en la isla, todo el mundo en el bloque mío era puertorriqueño, right? Es algo diferente, pero no te puedo decir exactamente, mira, la forma que yo soy boricua, eso como tú tienes que ser. No, I can teach you, I can tell you about my experiences. Taino can tell you about his experiences on the island, what it was when he came and became part of the diaspora on this side. And that's what it is. And we just take from, we take and we identify with what it is. And at the end of the day, it's going to mold our own version of Puerto Rican identity, as long as we're not denigrating or denouncing parts of ourselves or just completely ignoring it. We have to embrace all parts of our culture, the good, the bad, the ugly, things that don't even align with us maybe now spiritually and stuff like that. It all of it is
Let me ask an honest question.
all of it creates our identity as a whole, regardless.
As we're talking about the fluidity of Puerto Rican identity, I guess I might as well just ask this question. On the situation between Arcangel with that situation in Spain, do you view him, because this is connected to this to the topic here, because he isn't technically ethnically originally Puerto Rican, but he would. This is the word I like to use, and some people have actually embraced my analogy for this. In my personal view, I see Arcangel as a Puerto Ricanized Dominican American. A key word, Puerto Ricanized. In other words, he's based. Do you include him in in the Puerto Rican identity discussion, or do you see him as more adjacent because, well, he grew up on the island? I
Ah,
hear this.
mira,
I want to hear this.
okay, primero que nada, first of all, you know, I'm probably not the best Puerto Rican to ask this because me and Mimi had like a little powwow, a little like corporate meeting and everything with our CEO, and we all agreed that I
Yes.
was a unicorn. So
Yes.
a unicorn in
He
Puerto
is.
Rico
He really is.
and a magnificent Pegasus with peacock wings in the Philippines.
Yes.
So, and you gotta let me fly. So the the point is that de la misma manera que yo considero a Walter Mercado espiritualmente puertorriqueño por todo lo que hizo, a mí me importa un bicho que Arcángel, tú sabes, sea dominicano por sangre o lo que sea, tú sabes. Ese hombre se crió en la isla, ese hombre hizo su reggaetón en Puerto Rico, ese hombre se jodió para su música. He poured blood, sweat, tears, alcohol, and everything else, you know, into his career on the island. You know what I mean? For me, he's not only earned his spot, you know, he has earned his spot so hard that, you know, like the man's label possibly still owes me money and I'm willing to overlook that, you know. It's to accept him. So yeah, you know, para mí eso no importa porque and and this also falls to like a person that was earlier Nunio Clock saying like I'll never sound like y'all, you know. These Arcangel and these
Mhm.
things are a perfect example of that does not matter at the end of the day because en la isla hay huelebichos que se criaron en la isla and they deserve to get their Puerto Rican cards revoked. So para personas que aman nuestra cultura, que la respetan y que contribuyen a ella,
Mhm.
a ese punto, yo no se lo puedo quitar cuando tenemos gente que tiene sangre 100% boricua y no hace un carajo para la causa y es como que si eso fuera así, yo tengo una gran lista larga de huelebichos y mascabichos en la isla que yo, si tuviera el poder, les quitaba sus Puerto Rican cards, sus Boricua cards y se las daba a estas otras personas que la van a apreciar más, ¿entiendes? So yeah, for me, it's a non-issue.
Clearly, look. Clearly, he grew up in the culture. I mean, that part I don't disagree with. That's why I said he was Puerto Ricanized. Obviously, according to your definition, I feel like you're saying that you view it more fluidly, and I get it. It is a culture. I agree with that. I agree with that. I just think like between us, we know that like people who are outside of that conversation, you know, like obviously people who are not Puerto Ricans or even Puerto Ricans in name that yeah, they descend from people but may not be connected to the culture and they start speaking on some stuff that is ni aquí ni allá, neither here nor there, and then people take whatever somebody says at face value because oh well, because they're saying their connection to something. And I just feel like we need to have more open conversations about stuff like
No, sí, pero again, like I said, and this is what makes it all messy. Like, you know, my definition and my parameters are not going to be another Puerto Rican's parameters. You know what I mean? And you know, so eh, we're bringing up more guests because we gotten popular all of a sudden. Everybody wants to come up. Mira Panini, Romy, que es la que
Hi,
hay.
Benito.
Bienvenidas al primer episodio de Mofongo
Welcome,
Diaries.
welcome, welcome. Are you guys excited? So dime. Now I have a question because I've had Ivan up here for a while, right? And we've discussed my definition of the Puerto Rican identity, right? We haven't touched on TikTok Dinos yet. We're gonna save his for last. But Panini, what is the Puerto Rican identity to you? What does it mean to be Puerto Rican?
I think that for sure, like, we have to acknowledge the difference that they have to go through whenever they grow up on the island, right? Whenever you are raised and born on the island, right? That's something to acknowledge because they go through a lot of shit, bro. And they're still going through shit. That's the main thing we need to highlight. And
That part.
but also, we as a diaspora, I feel like we're responsible and we have to, like, carry on whatever power we have from being in the United States, like in the States. Like, we have to use that shit then. If we're here and we have a vote, or they're gonna have to listen if all of us are participating. You know what I mean? And they're not gonna pay attention if we're not all participating. But I think that our heritage and culture has, like, carried on through so many different, like, trials and tributes. And I think it's something to be proud of for sure, because no matter what, like, the culture's still here.
I have a question though for that, right? Because we do have people, and we've seen this, right? We've seen this on TikTok, we've seen this on other parts of social media, where we have other Puerto Ricans who are basically just telling us we're losing our culture, we're giving our culture away in favor of American exceptionalism, in favor of American ideologies. You know, how, to people like me, right, who I can be like, I can say, I don't feel we're losing the culture. We may have some disconnect. How can we fix that? Right?
People that feel, I think the people that feel like that, they need to do their part in being that difference. If they feel like it's a concern of theirs, do something about it, please, because we need it. Because I grew up, like, and I felt like, we didn't get enough connection to the island because we were here in Texas. And it's like, I kind of felt robbed of that. So now, like, going back and connecting myself to the family, I had to do that by myself. Like, asking questions, and man, old people don't like to answer no questions.
Yes. Or they get cognitive dissonance, or tienen amnesia. siempre tienen amnesia.
Don't, like, no cambian a la conversación. Come on, please. Like, they fucking, my grandpa, I sat here and I asked him, I want to interview you, dude, because I want to know what your life was like. I want to know everything. You told us some stuff, but you hesitate. And they shouldn't, because we need to know. It's like, it shapes like the ideologies that we form as adults. It shapes our political ideologies. And if we're not paying attention and teaching our children to pay attention to shit like that, my kids are 8, my older 2 are 8 and 10 years old. He's about to be 11. But they all pay attention to this shit. They know most of what's going on in the world today, and they know what's going on in Puerto Rico. And we stay involved with that shit.
No, I'm trying to listen. My older 2 were raised in Puerto Rican culture and Dominican culture. I'm not gonna lie, right? Because we have that mix of the dynamic with my family and his family. Unfortunately, I will say I lost a lot of that connection. Me leaving New York from being with my family, that my younger 2 were a little bit more immersed in Dominican culture and ultimately Mexican culture, because I lived in Texas. And the person who would take care of my kids was Mexican. So my youngest had a very Mexican crianza just off of, because I didn't have anyone there in Texas, right? So the little I could teach her was completely overwritten by who she was with every day.
And that's the thing, is like, I try to remind them all the time, like, listen, you guys come from very, hardworking and very strong roots, and there's something to be proud of. I was raised to be very ashamed of our culture, ashamed of speaking Spanish, ashamed of being Latino or Hispanic, however we want to categorize ourselves, however you want to identify. That they taught us to be ashamed of that shit. You're white. You're white. That's all.
Oh wow.
And that's how they were. And if not, then you're gonna get sent to the classes where it's frowned upon, right? And those are the classes where it's the Spanish immersion classes, right? So they kept sending us over there, and they got mad at us for that shit. Always looked at as the trouble child because you're Mexican or because you're Hispanic, like, or because you're black. Because even the black student, they got that shit too. We were all there getting that same treatment. We saw that shit, and we can't forget it. So we got to make sure, like, we build that shit up. And even if it was, more Mexican culture that they were raised by, they still have, a lot of the stuff that carries throughout the Latino cultures, So I feel like some of it is similar. It's very similar, but also it has its differences that we can respect.
Exactly. I just think that, even though with us having our own definition of what Puerto Rican culture is and what the Puerto Rican identity is, I still think that we need to be open-minded, right? Because, ¿qué? Hi, Romy. And you are breaking up, Romy. I think that's just what it has to be. Yeah, and you are breaking up, Romy. Dame un segundito. I think we just need to have an open mind when it comes to it, right? Like, I just feel that I don't have a correct definition. You don't have a correct definition. So how about, you know what? We just mix our definition and be like, hey, this is what we mean for the Puerto Rican identity collectively. Or, like this, so we can have, I don't feel like there should be a checklist. I'm gonna be honest.
Yes, I
feel
don't think we should be defining each other.
Exactly. The same way, like when
The
people,
other thing too. Go ahead.
when people want to, they're saying, "Tú eres New Rican." No, I'm Puerto Rican from the Bronx. Oh, but you are. No, I don't use that title. Like that's never been my title. It's always been, I'm Puerto Rican. I'm from the Bronx. Or I'm Bori from the Bronx. That's it.
It's another form of erasure.
Exactly.
And the other thing I was gonna say too, I have family on the island that doesn't speak to us because they don't want to see us because of the decision my family had to make, right? To leave. And it's like I don't understand all of why they feel the way that they feel because I haven't been told the full story. But I think that we need our families to get through that together and stop isolating ourselves and each other from the island because it's just going to harm us more.
Yeah, I agree. I've even when I was growing up, although we were taught to be proud of our heritage, yes, there have been now not so much these days because a lot of inroads have been made within in-house family stuff. But I remember growing up, some of what I can't help but to acknowledge some of what Panini's analogy is. Yeah, there are families that are, I guess, for lack of a better expression, culturally stuck on stupid, where just because someone didn't, like, for example, they used to call my mom, and and mind you, this is my Colombian mother, they used to call her que media gringa because, from the fact that of not growing up on the island, but like one of my siblings was named, like an American name, like, que piensa gringa and all that stuff and all this stuff. And we do need people do need to stop that. There needs to be some huge fallout where people who keep on trying to militantly segregate the diasporas from each other, like it's some sort of and mask it as some sort of progress, really need to be called out and exposed.
Y eso es la cosa porque like hay muchos problemas que like that need more fucking attention than this shit. Cuz we have people on the island who are living through this crap and we don't have enough of the here in Texas anyway, where I'm at, I didn't see nobody outside and there's no reason that should be happening if we got 50 Puerto Ricans in the same city. And a Puerto Rican restaurant. You don't have no Puerto Rican restaurant if you ain't gonna stand for your island.
Yes. And does anybody ever notice on this panel that out of all the Latino or Hispanic families, Puerto Ricans tend to be, whether it's stereotypical or in-house, seen as the least family oriented out of the different communities? Because
No.
even within people.
No. Listen, I will tell you something. It's like there's been so many negative stigmas attached to the Puerto Rican community. I can tell you my family, especially my mom's side of the family, they've always been very family oriented. They've always been very tight knit. The fathers are very much involved in their kids' lives, right? Like the sense of community that we built, let's say in my grandmother's block when I was growing up in the Bronx, like everyone looked out for each other. The same thing I had that even when more Puerto Ricans started to move into the projects where I lived at. Like we've always had that sense of unity, community, and family. All this other disconnect now is because I'm a firm believer that this disconnect among a lot of our communities comes from the participation awards, right? We fucked around. We wanted all kids to feel special. And now it led to so many people having an identity crisis where now they're doing this supremacy, right? Where now we have oh, I'm more Puerto Rican than you because I have 25% of this, or I have 10% of that, or I was born on the island, or I'm fluent and my first language is Spanish and has always been Spanish. And I ate on the bandejas de metal y bebí leche de la bolsa, right? Like, all this disconnect has happened within recently when it wasn't like this.
Yeah, and I peeped this out with several people. I'm not just thinking about one or two examples, but you got and then you even got some of these, and I know you don't use the term New Eurekan, Mimi, but just to speak on it within the context of, the narrative here. Then you got some people from New York. When I mean some people, I'm talking about old guard, or like people bringing up stuff like Mejoría la Raza or Blanqueamiento.
I even known that mejor la raza shit wasn't a part of us. And I need you to understand that, right? And I'm saying this as someone who, my grandmother's in her late 70s. My father, when he was alive, he would have been in his late 70s. My family from my dad's side, all of my elders are in their 80s and 90s. It's never been a mejorar la raza within us. Because when you look at our families, we're all colors. We are all colors. We are all shades. We got all different types of hair textures. Mejorar la raza wasn't that wasn't a Puerto Rican thing. If you may have a few, you might have one or two that are the outliers that may want to keep with that or may want to have like the Puerto Rican purity, but that wasn't something that wasn't the norm. Understand?
But I did want to also bring that up too, and thank you guys for bringing that up, because earlier today I did witness some of that happening on this app, and I tried to speak to this person about this rhetoric, and he doesn't want to do it, and that's on him. He's going to be a grown-ass man, and he's going to have to just live the rest of his life with that dumbass rhetoric. But anyway, it's not fair, and I don't like hearing this shit coming out of somebody who comes from where my people come from, like, because he's sitting there saying things like, against women not being able to be compared, or belittling them and stuff like that, belittling intelligence and shit and their capabilities. That shit ain't right, and that shit is not anything that was on the islands either. That shit didn't come from there, because let's remember, Tainos had like female leaders. Like, they respected their women for the contributions they had. And there's strength in that. But and there's strength in that. There's strength on both parties. It's not to belittle men, but there's strength in that teamwork and using each other's capabilities to everybody's benefit. Right? And here I do notice that Puerto Ricans from all over, if I know you or not, it's family, dude.
Yeah,
And
I feel you.
And I will add this from my island perspective, living on the island. Like, that whole mejorar la raza thing, personally, me, growing up, and this is anecdotal evidence, because I do know Puerto Ricans that supposedly have heard it, you know what I mean? And the few that have heard it, it's usually tied into the whole classism thing, you know what I mean? Because we do have that upper class, and we actually had this conversation before, but you know what? I'm not going to elaborate because that's episode 6 of the podcast, La Prima Riman. So I'm going to keep myself limited on that one. But me growing up personally, lo más cercano que yo escuché de mejorar la raza fue escuchar los lunes por la noche a Eddie Guerrero decir arriba la raza. And he was Mexican, and it was just me watching wrestling. So that's the closest thing during my entire life in Puerto Rico that I heard to mejorar la raza. It was Eddie Guerrero, WCW, or Monday Night Raw, depending on the contract and on the year, diciendo órale, arriba la raza in the middle of the ring before, slapping somebody silly y contar el 1, 2, 3, But yeah.
Mira, honestamente, la única vez que yo escuchaba algo that even is similar to that, era con un tío que criado, nació en la isla, my favorite uncle. Me dijo claramente, he's like, te dañaste la sangre boricua por tener un hijo con un dominicano. Y lo dejó ahí, right? It wasn't nothing. My daughters, had him in their pocket and everything. And it was just because what New York was before back in the day, we had we had straight blocks and neighborhoods and all that. So it was just common. It was just a common knowledge that we're just going to end up with another Puerto Rican, right? It wasn't no like, no te meta con ese, no te meta con ese. It was just a given. And if you didn't, it's like, oh, okay. They made their comment y ya.
Can you hear me better now?
Mejor sí.
Okay, I'm in the bathroom. That mejora la raza shit, that is never been a thing. I don't know if people get that shit. We have blancamiento, but that's about it. And that was like, ooh, way before we were all born, right? And I have heard it as a joke, but it never something like somebody telling me seriously, like, or la raza. Like if they see like a mixed couple in Puerto Rico, they'll use it as a joke. I was like, haha, mejora la raza. It's a joke, not like serious.
Mm-hmm.
So like my cousin was like telling me, esta hizo la mejor en la raza shit by being como un gringo, and I go like, qué cabrón. And I was like, he's like, she betrayed la raza. Él viene y le dice a mami, ella fue la que se dañó, no ves que está con un griego. Y yo le digo, cabrón tú eres. Después yo me fui con mi dominicano, usted se fue con un griego. Y yo le digo, que tú eres un dominicano, un griego, o un puertorriqueño. Pues por eso. Y yo, ay, cállate, estúpido, porque tú lo amas. Y él dice, yo lo sé, yo lo quiero. Pero tú dañaste la raza con ese griego. Y yo, vete pa'l carajo, cabrón. But it's a joke. They don't really do it seriously. It's also always a joke. I've never seen anybody say it seriously.
I'll tell you this. I feel like this is what happened. I grew up around, like, look, I'm only 37 years old. I'm not even technically that old. I'm not saying that I'm a young person like that, but I'm not even
you make Jesus.
No, it's not even an excuse. No, it's not an excuse. That's the problem. This is the
I didn't
problem.
say an excuse. I'm like, sometimes you make it sound like you met Jesus.
No,
sometimes he makes it sound like he's older than me.
No, but you guys got to read between the lines, though. Some people
Don't get me started on
did
Jesus.
grow up.
Okay.
Look. Let's leave religion out of this, please. Let's leave religion out.
You
of this.
don't get the context of Jesus, but it's okay.
Hold on. But let's make this point, though. I feel like, I guess the point. What's the point of me saying this in this way? That's where gatekeeping needs to be a thing when it comes to people talking about anecdotal experiences that may have been a thing once upon a time ago, but it might not even be relevant in this discussion that we're having today because we're people living in our present time and place. Some people are cross-referencing stuff and making that the reason to either integrate with our community completely or delineate. And it's not fair because it's propaganda. It's propaganda being recycled and not for the right reasons. Like, I feel like we need to have those type of conversations so we can decipher what is and what isn't. Because stuff like Mejorando la Raza, okay, I get it. It may not be a sample in our community in this day and age, but we have people who are outside our community hell-bent on saying, no, stop lying to yourselves. You know this is a thing because we know how people like to generalize us and force us to accept guilt in something that they don't even fully understand, nor do they care to understand. I feel like that's where the problem is.
I have a question for you, right? Why are we letting people outside the culture define who we are as Puerto Ricans? Why? Right? At the end of the day, no matter how we look at things, we're always going to have slander. There's always going to be slander, no matter what. Right? Either we don't do enough, we do too much, we think we're this, we think we're that, we don't think we're that. There's always going to be slander. So why is it that we're going to allow someone outside of the culture to tell me whether or not I represent my culture or whether or not something was in fact an issue within my culture? They don't have any firsthand knowledge. They're going by anecdotal experience or anecdotal assumptions. That's it. Eso se acabó.
And I'm gonna add this. Like, it's very easy for people to tell us how to run our culture and what qualifies over social media with a disconnect. It's much easier because I will also add this. O sea, no es lo mismo tú decirle a los puertorriqueños, not the same telling them like, oh, this is your culture, this is where it got to be. O sea, ve y dile eso a tío Luis Cubanito, que suena como el nombre del tío abuelo del bichote en Barrio Obrero. Ve y díselo en la cara para que veas the bad time that you're going to have. No, it's not the same hearing these people on social media that love to be loud and wrong versus what goes on in real life, and are they going to have the balls to tell what they're saying so bravely in social media to our people's face? Baja la isla y di eso, o baja al lado más puertorriqueño de Nueva York y dile eso y grita eso en la calle. Go like John McClane in Die Hard 3 and wear that sign until Samuel L. Jackson comes up and tries to save you because you're buck naked with a very racist sign on top of you. It's not going to end well wherever you go in person.
And not just that, or saying stupid stuff like, oh, why are we listening to this half breed, this half Colombian, this half or this half Mexican that pretends to be just because you didn't have both parents.
Ella tanta americana, ella no sabe nada. Like that, I can't stand that shit. Like they, without even hearing nobody out. They gotta stop that shit. I understand that a lot of people, like born and raised here, don't know, and that needs to be spoken about too. Because I feel like even whether they're from the island or related to the island at all, or because shut up, Brian. Whether they're related at all, it doesn't matter. Like they all need to know what happened, and our history should matter to everybody because that shit nobody gives a fuck.
No, I get it, and this is again, I guess just listening to y'all, because I've been listening mostly. I try to listen. These conversations do need to be had
now, but this is
yeah. Go ahead.
No. Actually, go ahead, Ivan. Continue. I want you to finish your point first.
I didn't want to cut anybody off. No, I'm just saying
that
go
ahead.
you know what? I lost my train of thought. Go ahead, y'all. Go ahead.
Romy, I need you to tell me, what do you think the Puerto Rican identity is?
What does it mean for you?
What does it mean to you, mija? Ooh, yes. I think your service is bad, babe. Romy, I'm gonna drop you and I'm gonna bring you back up. Vamos a ver ahora si funciona.
Yeah, we apologize to everybody for the technical difficulties on the first episode.
I want to know more from people on the island going through things, like different struggles throughout the island that they face, like with the healthcare system, education system, electrical, all of it. And I want to know what people are thinking in different regions to what's going to better their situation, what's going to help them the most. You know what I mean? That way we can start to formulate ideas that are going to benefit everybody in the best way, and the future generations too.
And I'm so glad you brought that up, Panini, because it kind of segues right into like an ad spot. Like, please, all of you, remember that coming soon from the creators of the Mofongo Diaries and our CEO, we will be developing an app called Caribbean Connection to address all of these concerns that Panini is talking about right now, because those are our goals. It's beyond this podcast, beyond, everything else that we were talking about, Tainos, that we were talking about, fascism and everything. It's beyond that, and it's beyond preventing the spread of managed democracy or anything else. We are here to connect all of our Caribbean people, and that's what we're trying to develop. We're trying to aim for an app. We're trying to aim for connecting with resources.
Can I throw shade?
Yeah, hold on, Ivan, chill, because he's talking. Give him a second. Let him finish his point.
Coming soon through a smartphone near you, we will hopefully have this app up and running. This has been my TED Talk. Thank you. Now everybody else can continue.
Back to our regularly scheduled episode.
I was gonna throw shade at an intended audience. In other words, this is our version of Truth Social. Don't get mad at me, y'all. I had to do it. I had to do it.
Yes.
I had to do it. I had to do it.
Yes.
You guys get the reference, right?
Mimi got the reference first than anybody else. She lives closest to the orange spray tan.
I get the reference, Ivan, of course.
Oh,
Of course.
shit.
You know I got that. I was literally down there 2 weekends ago. The trauma of West Palm Beach. Bueno, Felcato está haciendo algo, so let's listen to your definition of what the Puerto Rican identity is.
Oh, wow. Llegó el momento de mi definición puertorriqueña con...
Espérate.
Te tienes que sentar, lo sé, tienes que respirar, tienes que ponerte cómoda para esto, porque es como que tiene su sprinkle de Paulo Coelho, un poquito de Paulo Coelho, un poquito de Jacobo Morales, tú sabes. Mi definición es un poco poética, tú sabes. Ay, ¿qué significa ser puertorriqueño para mí? Bueno, para mí, ser puertorriqueño significa tener la experiencia de la isla, la playa, el sol, la arena, morirte 3 días esperando por los sellos y la licencia de conducir y el examen en sesco, quedarte sin gasolina en el medio del tapón por la tarde hacia Cagua, estar en una parada esperando la guagua de la ama porque estás pelado y la transportación pública está tarde, por cierto, porque aunque el letrero dice que la guagua pasa cada 15 minutos, ya llevas hora y media esperando por la A16 y entonces pasan 3 cacos en unos Mirage, en un Rusty Mitsubishi Mirage de 1994 con un sistema de sonido con el bajo explotado tocando Playero 41 for the 10,000th time, pero los aros de las gomas del Mirage son completamente nuevos, brand new. Choices. Y cagándote en la madre que te parió por la fila de McDonald's. Porque solamente tienes 30 minutos de almuerzo y la fila se tardó 1 hora y 45 minutos para para tú ordenar un McCriollo y decirte que ya son las 10:30 y lo único que sirven es almuerzo y tener que conformarte con un Big Mac y unas papas medianas porque, tú sabes, hasta el value menu está clavador. Tú sabes, ¿qué más significa ser puertorriqueño? ¿Qué más? Raymond Arrieta haciendo blackface cuando tenía 8 años. Papo Swing, tú sabes, hay muchas cosas que podría decir más, pero para mí eso es lo que significa ser puertorriqueño. Gracias. Este ha sido mi segundo TED Talk en un solo episodio de Mofongo Diary. Do you want to say like some final Jerry Springer moments or Oprah moments, like when they're closing their talk shows?
At the end of the day, do not let anyone define. No, como siempre, you know something, me and technology don't mix because yo estaba aquí hablando, dando my closing statement, y después and then the iPad is like, you are muted. So I was like, oh.
You know, we got it on the podcast though. We got it on one half. We can edit it, and I think Panini agrees, House agrees, Felcrato agrees that we are not going to talk about that mistake. We're just gonna edit it in and pretend that it never happened. Everybody heard you. Everybody, you spoke those words with eloquence, with dignity, like.
And if you want to hear my closing statement, definitely tune into the podcast.
Yeah, definitely. Ve, tú sabes, es como que it's like the DVD commentary.
Oh, we're gonna do the director's cut.
Yeah, we're gonna do the director's cut. Pero anyway, like, you're gonna continue the live.
Yeah,
right?
I'll probably continue the live for a bit.
Okay, perfect. Then everybody, thank you for being here on our first episode of Mofongo Diaries. it was a huge train wreck and a huge success. It was the most successful train wreck
Una,
in the
una
history
con culo
of
que sabía
successful train
delicioso.
wrecks. Es riquísimo,
Riquísimo.
riquísimo. Tú sabes, como mamá lo hacía, tú sabes, cuando salía a las 4 de la tarde de la escuela, puñeta, tú sabes. So anyway, aquí, thank you everybody for listening and tune in next week. You know?
Thank you guys for all your support. We really do appreciate it. Thank you for coming through, coming up, liking, sharing. It means a lot.